What is the definition of self-defense?
I'm not going to sit here and go over
I'm just saying it's
law
like
and
at risk of so like I'm just sitting here thinking about this. I know you guys are out there doing your job, okay? But you know, these men who I do not know, I've never seen, came to my father's house to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
That was why they came, and I just, you know.
How do you know that's why they came?
For decades, Jacksonville has been dubbed the murder capital of Florida. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says that's now changing, but some families still find themselves in the crossfire of the violence that has plagued Jacksonville since the early 2000s. As of September 10th, 2024, data from the JSO shows there have been 42 murders in Jacksonville compared to the 76 murders exactly 1 year prior. Overall, homicide has been on the decline since 2022. Even still, that's no small number of murders in one city, especially when you consider how many people are affected. 42 families just this year have lost a loved one to a murder in Jacksonville. Belonging to one of those families was 30-year-old Austin Fitzgerald, a Keystone Heights native who relocated to the much larger city of Jacksonville in 2021. He was a brother, a son, a musician, and a first-time father to a young boy. In the early hours of January 21st, 2024, less than a month into the new year, Fitzgerald was gunned down outside of a home on River Road in the San Marco neighborhood. The shooting allegedly took place during an altercation involving a woman. Several people witnessed the shooting, including another man who was with Fitzgerald, the woman at the center of it all, and a neighbor who was just trying to help. A call to 911 was made around 1:30 a.m. The JSO, along with Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, responded to the call and quickly arrived at the scene. They rushed Fitzgerald to a local hospital and took the witnesses into custody, including the gunman, 36-year-old Luis Roces. Roces is associated with multiple residences, including a home in Neptune Beach. That night, he was staying at his father's home on River Road. Officers placed Roces in a police cruiser, where he waited for 5 hours to be brought to the sheriff's office for questioning. There, in a cold interrogation room, a nervous and uncertain Roces waited 3 hours for detectives to begin questioning him. But he had some questions too, like should he even speak to detectives at all?
Well, how are you doing?
Okay, how are we holding up?
Not doing well.
Not good yet.
I know. Is it Louis or Luis?
Luis.
Luis. Okay. Detective Hansen. Let me make sure I pronounce it right.
Yeah, I know this has been a rough night for you.
Yes.
I'm sorry that you're having to go through all this. We're going to try to make this as simple and streamless and easy as possible. Okay.
I have a few questions before you get started. I've spoken with the detective who was kind enough to bring me this blanket.
Okay.
But first of all, I'm terrified. Second of all, I feel horrible.
Of course you do.
And third of all, I don't know what is the best route for me as far as like seeking counsel or just speaking with you.
So here's what we usually do.
Please, at least just 1 second. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like I've been thinking about this just because like one of the witnesses, I don't know those other two men at all. One, I know my neighbor ran over. He didn't really see what happened. I don't trust anything she said. She told me she was in Palatka, staying at her aunt's house for a baby shower the next day. And these are the kind of things. So like, I don't know who you've talked to or like what they've said, or
Right.
how that would go against me, and like what actually happened, and so
I get it.
what ended up happening is I went to my dad's house just to watch the Packers game. I was just chilling by myself.
Which was about, the Packers game was at like...
It ended at like 9 something or 10 something.
That was the second game, and that started at like 8:15, I think.
Maybe around 10:45 it ended something.
So what time did you go to your dad's house?
Way before that. I went probably around like, I don't have my phone. I probably around like 6.
Okay. Where do you typically reside?
Typically, I reside either. This is gonna sound funny, but usually I have a place that's it's in Atlantic Beach, but I kind of sublet that out to my friend,
Gotcha.
and
Just
then,
like an extra source of income kind of thing.
yeah, it's like I sublet it out to him, and I have some stuff there,
Okay.
and then I stay at my dad's house maybe twice a week. It depends. When my mom passed away in 2021, and since she's passed, he retired, and he's a retired physician. He's just constantly gone. He's been in Colorado for 5 weeks or something. And so I talked. I told before all this, she's like, yeah, I'm going to Palatka to stay with my aunt. And so I called her after the Packers game just to say, hey, good night. Wrote up, and the girl picks up the phone, and I'm like, who the hell is this? And I was like, because I know her aunt. I went to court. When was it? 2 days ago, 3 days ago, because she had a no contact order put on her ex-husband.
Julia did?
No.
Okay.
And I went to support her there as a witness, and I met her aunt and uncle, who were, and anyways, I knew it wasn't her. I was like, who is this? And she said, I want to talk to you. We're in Riverside. I was like, Riverside. Okay, 5 points. So I go to 5 points, was not drinking, like sober, and it's like kind of gay part of town. So I walked into, there were one or two bars, just looking for her. She's pretty outstanding. So just, I was like just looking for her. And I went to one other one. I was like, I couldn't find her. I knew I was in the wrong area, but eventually she picked up the phone. I guess her friend, she said that her friend had her phone the whole night, and that's why she wasn't answering.
Okay.
It seems like Roces' involvement in the shooting all began with a woman, perhaps a woman who wasn't all that interested in him. According to his story, they communicated through text and phone calls that evening. She told Roces she was staying with a family member for the night, but on one call it became clear that perhaps that wasn't the case. The woman's friend allegedly took her phone and told Roces she didn't want to talk to him. It was then that Roces was looking for her. He drove to 5 Points, a popular neighborhood in Riverside's historic district. Located just across the river from downtown Jacksonville, 5 Points is a bustling area full of shops, restaurants, and a busy nightlife scene. After popping into a few bars to look for the woman, Roces realized he must have been in the wrong place. But then the woman finally answered one of his calls, and she asked him to pick her up.
And then she told me to pick her up at Burger King, which is right by
The 5 Points Burger King?
it's closer to European Street. Like I think it's
On
like
King Street. I know where it is.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
Kings and College.
That and so they were at those little bars that
Yeah.
right there. She was walking by herself, got in my truck, wasted, just wasted, and I was like, "What the hell?" And in my truck driving back to San Marco, she starts talking about her second boyfriend and all this stuff, and she's sitting there like texting this guy, trying to make me jealous because something happened with a girl.
About what time do you think you picked her up? Ballpark.
Midnight, maybe-ish. I'd have to see my phone.
Okay.
I'd have to be honest. I'd
Okay.
have to like look at that.
No, that's I don't expect you to know the exact time, just
And
so I can have a time frame.
yeah, and so then we get back to my house, and we weren't there for very long. But I've never seen these men in my life, and I've been carrying a gun since I was 23, 24. It was licensed in Colorado. It was, they recognize that here in the state of Florida.
Mhm.
I've been hunting my whole life.
Sure.
I have great gun safety. Not a lunatic whatsoever.
If Luis Roces isn't a lunatic, as he says, why did he shoot a man outside his father's home that night? Our team at Law and Crime used TruthFinder to see if Roces has ever been in trouble with the law before and to verify his claim that he usually practices great gun safety. On truthfinder.com, we typed in Luis Roces' name, age, and city of residence. In under a minute, our paid subscription service gave us access to personal and contact information, including the address of his father's home where the shooting took place. In addition to his address history, we also found information like possible business affiliations and criminal records, His Colorado gun license didn't appear, but neither did any gun-related charges. Judging from the public reports available with truthfinder.com, Roces seems to be telling the truth. Before January 2024, his name wasn't tied to any violent or weapons-related charges. Unlimited reports with this kind of information and more are available in minutes to anyone with a paid subscription. Law and Crime partners with Truthfinder so our writers and reporters can research cases and reveal real information about suspects like Luis Roces. But even if you don't work in true crime, Truthfinder.com can give you peace of mind when you do these unlimited public record searches for the people around you. Search for sex offenders in your area, find out if your neighbor has any charges related to the weapon in his holster, and learn about the people in your life when you search their name on Truthfinder.com, and they'll never know you looked. If you're watching this episode of Law and Crime Interrogations, you can get 50% off your first month of confidential background reports at Truthfinder.com/LC Interrogations. The link is in the description.
And see, I don't even know if I'm saying too much. Is this all being recorded right now?
Yeah, that's all recorded in these rooms, but you're not, I mean, you're just telling us the story of what we asked.
And so yeah, so then I open the front door to see what the noise is outside. These guys come booming, and this guy's big. One of the guys is big, one of the guys is smaller, and he's like coming at me.
If it's true that the men were threatening or potentially dangerous to Roces when they entered the home on River Road where he was staying, Florida's strict stand your ground law might apply. The stand your ground law basically states that as long as a person has the right to be where they are and is not engaging in any criminal activity, they aren't required to retreat before threatening or using deadly force against a perceived threat. In other words, if Roces believed the two men were entering his home with intentions to take his life or cause great harm to him, he might have been within his legal right to shoot. Investigators just need more information to get to the bottom of why Austin Fitzgerald was shot that January night.
So, I don't know, they were both calling me all sorts of names and whatever, and they were leaving, and they were wasted. These guys were acting crazy. They were clearly wasted, and they were driving. And they parked right where you couldn't see where their car, like from the window. And so it was like some white SUV. I don't remember. And so I was out with them, and I'm in the car with those guys. Like, they're wasted, just come back inside. And the guy runs at me again. And that, you know, I told him to stop. And he didn't, and I didn't know whether he was gonna stab me or hurt me or kill me. I didn't know, and I don't really want to say anything else, and I don't know what I'm so confused.
Presumably, it was Austin Fitzgerald, the victim, who Roces said came at him. Social media posts made by his loved ones paint him as kind and thoughtful, a family man. Even in his own posts, Austin comes off as a good guy. He seemed to admire the mother of his child and adore the son they shared. His obituary describes him as a simple, fun-loving man who enjoyed playing guitar and was proud of his new role as a father. Online, at least, he doesn't seem at all like the belligerent, threatening man who Roces described to investigators. But to every man there's more than meets the eye. Austin Fitzgerald had a criminal history in 2 counties. In 2022, an altercation that turned physical between Fitzgerald and his romantic partner at the time led to an arrest in Jacksonville. The argument allegedly started over the safety of the couple's child and resulted in both parties walking away with physical injuries. In the report, the officer wrote that he couldn't determine who the initial aggressor was. Fitzgerald was originally charged with battery, though the offense was ultimately reduced to fighting. Fitzgerald and the woman involved both declined to file domestic violence paperwork or allow authorities to photograph their injuries. Our interest was piqued, so we signed back into Truthfinder.com to see what other public records might be available for Austin Fitzgerald. There we noticed several records from Clay County where Fitzgerald grew up. Dated nearly a decade before his recent arrest, the Clay County records show some more common traffic-related charges and a history of grand theft. An arrest report states that years before his move to Jacksonville, Fitzgerald allegedly stole a firearm, a knife, and some prescription pills from a family member's home. Then he left the residence altogether. But there's nothing that shows any violent intent behind having the weapons, and he ultimately called the police department to turn himself in. Fitzgerald has no violent charges out of Clay County. Nevertheless, knowing more about Fitzgerald's criminal history adds context to Roces' story, and perhaps the version of Fitzgerald he describes encountering that night.
So you went out to the Riverside area.
I was at 5 Points.
You went to the 5 Points area.
Yeah, they weren't at the 5 Points area. They were at the other area.
Yeah, King Street.
Okay.
And then that's finally when I picked up the phone, and she was like, "Come pick me up. It's freezing." And I believe she said something like, "I left because these guys are just trying to something." I was like, "What guys? Like, what are you?" You know, and that was.
Well, so back up just a little bit. Again, I'm trying to get the timeline.
Yeah.
So from the time, what time do you think you left your house to try to meet up with her in 5 Points?
Maybe like 11:15ish, like not that late. And
So 11:15.
maybe because it wasn't that long. I was probably walking around for like 45 minutes before I finally got a hold of her, and then she came and I picked her up, and then she came back to my house, and then it was very quickly after that those men showed up.
Okay. So you go and you pick her up.
Yeah.
And you drive. You drive straight to your house.
I drove it to River Road.
But you guys didn't like stop to get food or anything on that.
No.
You drove straight to your house.
Yeah.
Has she been to that house before?
Yes.
Did you guys have any kind of conversation in the car?
Yeah, I was like, who are these guys you're talking to? You know, and she was really drunk, and she even like opened the door of my truck while it was moving at one point. And she's like, "Just drop me off," and I was like, "No, just like relax." And yeah, and then the guy kept calling her, and she was like, "I'm with him," and I think
But you had no idea who that guy was.
I had no idea who this person was.
Has she ever mentioned having this second boyfriend or anything before tonight?
Never, not once.
So this is the first you've ever heard of this dude, or anything like that?
Ever. First time I've ever seen him. First time I ever heard his name. First time I don't even remember his. It starts with a B. Something. And the other guy, I'd never seen either one of them in my life. When I opened the front door, I was scared to death. I thought somebody was like trying to rob my house at first, and then I realized because he was like crazy and was like trying to stop him that like that must have been who they were hanging out with, and he kept coming at me. I'm inside my dad's house. My mom passed away in like the room right next to us. I did not want to do anything, and I didn't. I did not want to do anything. And
I
wanted them out of my house.
Roces told detectives that before Fitzgerald and the other man arrived at his father's home, the woman at the center of it all was in the bathroom, texting. Roces guessed she was talking to the men with whom she had just parted ways. Roces was confused, wondering why she would be texting them when she was at his house.
That's when I heard some noise outside, and I was like, "Did you call an Uber or something? Like, what is that?" And then I opened the door, and these guys like burst in. And
did anybody knock or anything? Ring the doorbell?
No.
Announce themselves?
No.
Okay.
Nothing like that. I thought it was going to be like some kids running around. Like, I had no idea.
So they burst in. Describe burst in. What do you mean by that?
Burst in like. I opened the door, like the guy's like coming at me, like the guy was gonna try to cause physical harm to me.
How do you know that?
That was because he said it first of all.
What did he say? I want to know genuinely. Like what did he say?
I'm gonna beat your or something along those lines. I don't know. I was pretty scared at the time. And then I was like, get out of my house. Get out and I think I went out to like. I'd say sorry or something like that, but I was like making sure she wasn't getting in a car with these like impaired crazy people. And dude, yeah, I don't know.
So did she run out while they were still?
They were walking. I don't even know whose car that was. That could have been. I don't know if that's your car. I don't know whose car it was.
Were they actually in your house?
Yes.
Okay, so they walked in your house. Did she run outside before or after they got inside?
After.
Okay, so they come inside, and then she runs out. Were they still inside when she left, or were they leaving?
When she left?
When she ran out.
When she ran out? No, she ran. She didn't run out. She walked.
Okay.
And they were going back to their car, and she was like saying something to them, and I was along the lines. I was like, "Please don't get in the car," and they're both sitting there, just still being super aggro towards me, and they didn't even know who I was. Like and I think that they met that night. To be honest.
Okay.
So, and
okay. So after
I'm
they,
not gonna let somebody
Sure, that's somebody you care about. I get it.
well, not only that, but I'm just not gonna let somebody like hurt me or you know what I mean. Like I have no idea what that guy's capable of doing. First of all, feared for my life when they first bursted through the door, and then the second time, and I don't know if my neighbor saw anything or what he did, but I know he ran over right away.
I know you did.
Yeah.
And so when he came, you said you asked not to go with them, and then which guy was it that?
I don't know. The big tall guy.
Okay, big tall guy. What did he do?
He was physically like coming at me, what word could I use to describe it? Starts with an A. I know that. Advancing.
Okay.
Aggressively advancing towards me.
Can you elaborate on aggressive? And that's important, so I can have a picture of what's happening.
The guy was gonna beat my, and he didn't have anybody holding him back this time.
The detective pressed Roces on whether there was any conversation that took place between him and the men on the sidewalk. He claimed he told the men to stop. Other than that, Roces indicated Fitzgerald's allegedly aggressive behavior was totally unprovoked.
Did you end up shooting him?
I'd like a lawyer. I'd like a lawyer.
Okay. You done talking to us without a lawyer?
I mean,
yeah, that's fine.
I don't.
So
I'm being dead honest with you. I just, I don't know what. That's everything that happened.
After Roces asked for a lawyer, he waited another hour for detectives to return to the interrogation room.
Okay, so here's the deal. Before we left, you did mention an attorney. Okay, so if you're willing to speak with me, then I obviously want to hear what you have to say, and I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go over your rights again with you.
Okay.
And I need you to basically tell me that you're willing to speak with me without your attorney being present. Is that something that you want to do?
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I have a few questions.
All right. Well, before we go down that road,
Okay.
again, this is to protect you, and this is to protect me. I'm going to read you your rights again.
Okay.
Okay. Same kind of thing. It's the 21st of January, 2024. It's now 12:45.
I'm so exhausted. It's hard to even think.
Roces agreed to speak again with detectives, but it seemed like he was looking for some advice on how to move forward rather than wanting to share more information.
What is the definition of self-defense?
I'm not going to sit here and go over.
I'm just saying it's
Law
like
and
at risk of so like I'm just sitting here thinking about this. I know you guys are out there doing your job, okay? But these men who I do not know, I've never seen, came to my father's house to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
That was why they came, and I just
How do you know that's why they came?
because that's what they're trying to beat me up.
How do you know that?
Because that's what they said they were doing. I was like, get out of my house. When I said get out of my house, they're like, they put that down. They can kick your ass. Like,
Okay, and that's what we're trying to clarify.
Yeah,
initially.
like all that kind of stuff. I don't remember everything, and this is where I just want that's why I wanted to talk to you. Like, honesty from you guys is like, is it better to like talk to a lawyer about this so that they can?
Again, we can't give you legal advice like that.
Because
I can't sway your decision one way or another.
I don't know if
Use your attorney.
I'm saying,
I can give you your rights, and that's it. And you have to make that decision on your own. I can't give you any advice on that.
And I just have some questions as of right now. What's the verdict? What's going on with me? And
right now, this is still an information gathering portion,
okay.
right? So I've still got questions for you. I would like to gather more information from you as to ascertain what happened.
The interrogation continued for over an hour. Roces answered many of the same questions pertaining to when and how the men showed up at his door, how he carried his gun, what happened once the men exited the home. Roces claimed he did not point the gun at the men when he opened the door, but he did have the gun on him. He retold the story of the verbal assaults the men allegedly threw at him and the way he said Fitzgerald charged at him. But he also added a new detail to his story. While the woman was on the phone with the other men, Roces admitted to sharing his address with them, though he said he didn't imagine they would actually show up. Then, detectives asked about his relationship with the woman at the center of the altercation that night. Roces learned that the woman told detectives she'd been trying to get away from him for some time. But Roces tells a completely different story about their relationship. Though he described it as patchy, he said the woman asked him for various favors and seemed to want him around.
So, listen, I'm a guy.
Yeah.
I grant it. I'm an old guy now, so the whole jealousy thing is kind of gone. I don't give a shit. But I remember having that streak in me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm sitting there with a girl who I'd been dating for 6 months, and all of a sudden she's texting some other dude to come get her, it's going to piss me off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens with what I do with that anger is, different. But it totally stands to reason that you were off. And then these guys show up at your house, and you even challenge them when you're on the phone, provide them an address and say you have a gun or whatever. Your text about handling things, meaning whatever. I don't know. I can't ever think about that text, but we talked about that a minute ago. So you get the point that he's getting at.
Yes.
We understand. You're angry.
Yeah.
And then these guys show up.
Yeah. That's
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah. It was scary. It's scary. I didn't think that they were going to show up to my house, especially at that time. I did not think that was going to happen. I thought it was just water under the bridge, and
but to say that you didn't know that she was leaving with them, you and I both know that. They showed up, and once they were there, they came to get her, and you knew she was leaving with them. You did not want her to leave.
And you watched her leave with them. You watched her exit your house, walk down your driveway, and go to get in that car.
Okay.
And I'm sure that seeing that probably tore you up. It would tear me up too. I get it.
That's not what I saw. That's not what I saw happening. I saw her walking outside talking to those guys and them telling her to get into the car, but I had no idea that was really her intention, was to leave me with them. That is not.
Why would you tell her don't get in the car?
Because I heard the guy.
That was not a real fear of yours that she was going to get in the car.
That happened quickly once I heard him saying, "Get in on that side" or something. I was like, "Don't go with them," But that was, that wasn't. I did not think she was leaving.
How long
with
did that interaction take?
3-4 seconds, and that's one of the reasons I walked outside, is because I was wondering what she was doing. I didn't think she was like going to leave with them. I was like, is she talking to them or like trying to smooth things over? What's going on? She stood out there. They waited for me to walk up to
What happened after he was shot?
I ran in, and then my neighbor came over.
Okay, so you ran inside, got your cell phone. You came back?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do from there?
Prayed that he would be okay, and
Did you call anybody else?
no, I don't believe so. might have accident. No, I called.
We know from the witnesses that are completely independent of this whole situation that you called somebody else.
I would have to look at my phone. I don't. I call. I rap. I would have to look at my phone for that. I'm dead serious. I went and grabbed my phone. I dialed into.
Do you have any questions for us right now?
Yeah. What's going on with what's happening?
I'm gonna come back in a few minutes and kind of go over the last little steps of this with you. I just need to honestly go confer with my supervisor and all that.
When the detective came back into the room, some of Roces' questions were finally answered, but they weren't the answers he was expecting.
You know what? I'm gonna be able to make any phone calls.
Yes, so here's the process. Obviously, we've been consulting with state attorney. It's gone up to the highest level, and you are being arrested today. Okay, I know that you have a defense of what you have, but as far as the process goes, when we go next door, you'll get booked in, and then you have access to a phone. So it may be a few hours.
What am I being arrested for?
Second-degree murder.
Second-degree murder?
Yes, sir.
And how will I make phone calls from the jail phone?
Your first phone call, if I understand correctly, is free. And do you have phone numbers, family?
I know my dad's in Colorado. I know my brother's. That's the only.
So if actually your brother was by the house, and I'll talk to him, and I got a number for your dad to give him a call.
Second-degree murder?
Yes, sir.
What is that? What is that? What am I facing? What is that?
To be honest with you, I don't know what the minimum mandatory is, but I'll tell you. I'll look into it, and I'll tell you when I get back.
Sorry. Second-degree murder?
Yep. I'll be back.
Feel like you're gonna get sick.
Thank you. Can I talk to you for a second?
In Florida, the minimum sentence for a conviction of second-degree murder with a firearm is 25 years. Roces hired decorated attorney Henry Hank Cox to represent him in court. Just a few days after his arrest, Roces enters a plea of not guilty to the second-degree murder charge pressed against him. By filing the plea, he waived his right to attend the arraignment. Austin Fitzgerald's mother wrote a letter to the judge assigned to the case, Judge Mark Borello. In the letter, she asked that Roces be required to attend all hearings. Then, in May, Roces waived his right to a speedy trial. Waiving a speedy trial can benefit a defense team by giving them more time to prepare. However, that extra time can also help the prosecution's case. Since then, possible new evidence has been made public. In July, a discovery exhibit from the state revealed a text that Roces allegedly sent the night of the shooting. Part of the message reads, "I hate you. If I see you up there with other men, start praying for them now." It continues, "You're such a POS. Out at the bar with scumbag dudes talking to me." Another discovery exhibit from September 5th suggests the existence of a shooting video. The document states the defendant can be heard on the alleged video saying, "Think I got him. Think he's dead. That's what happens." Luis Roces' next pretrial date is scheduled for October 3rd, 2024.